You know, is the real Ed 165 pounds of muscles and bones and blood? What exactly is the real Ed? Like one time I became lucidly aware and I found Ed, and in that lucid dream, Ed was holding 2-gallon jugs of water. And so we're going along, and Ed keeps holding these 2-gallon jugs of water. Anyway, in the morning, I give him a call, and I said, Ed, do you remember your dreams? And he goes, yeah. And so he starts telling me his dreams, and I go, okay, it's that one, you by the lake. I said, I was the other person with you in that dream, but I was lucidly aware, and I noticed that you were carrying 2 jugs of water. What's that all about? And he told me, he goes, oh, you don't realize this, but in waking life, I have decided to try this water regimen, this water diet. And so every day I drink 2 gallons of water. I go, really? And he goes, yeah, I drink 2 gallons of water a day, something like that. And so anyway, you could see that again, do I meet the real Ed, or do I meet the energy signature of Ed? What exactly constitutes the real Ed? You know, so all of these things are very complex in any kind of philosophical or psychological sense. But do I get information that I can later verify? Yes. Do I get information that's outside of my own knowledge? Yes. How do we explain that? We explain it either through the use of telepathy or through a more shamanistic view that I visited Ed. So there you go.
Maybe the question could be interpreted as, is it Ed's consciousness? Or is it just, as you said, like a piece of information of Ed, or are you accessing like an energy signature, or however you want to call it?
So my friend Suzanne from Holland, who I used to do dream telepathy experiments with, one time she told me she became lucidly aware and came to find me. And she found me, and we had a very interesting conversation. And then at the very end of it, Suzanne looked at me in her lucid dream and said, will you, Robert, remember this conversation? And then Robert, in her lucid dream, said, you are interacting with Robert at a subconscious level, at a level of his subconscious awareness. So on a subconscious level, this conversation took place, but the waking ego Robert will probably not recall it unless he gets basically to this level. So you see what I'm saying? It's kind of like that inception moment of planting an idea into someone else's head. But here would be another example. One time I became lucidly aware, and my friend Maureen walked through the door, and I ran up to her and I said, Mo, this is a lucid dream. Do you know that? But the interesting thing, Lena, her eyes were moving back and forth like she was having a dream experience, like she was having rapid eye movement. And so I grabbed her around the waist and I started to float with her. And I said, Mo, see this? We're floating. This is a dream. This is a lucid dream. But her eyes were still like this. And so finally I got frustrated and I put my fingers in a peace symbol and I shoved it in her face. And I said, Mo, do you see this? You can use this as a symbol to help you become lucidly aware anytime you want. So anyway, the next morning she didn't write me an email. She lives out in the San Francisco area and I live in the Midwest. And I didn't tell anybody, I didn't tell her. 3 months later, I'm out in the San Francisco area on a business trip. I realized I had some free time, and so I called her up and asked her if she wanted to have lunch together. And she said, sure, I'll meet you at this restaurant in Burlingame on Main Street. So now this is waking reality. I'm standing in Burlingame, California on Main Street. Here my friend Mo comes walking down the street, and before she even says hello or anything, all of a sudden she puts her fingers in a peace sign and she shoves it in my face. and I asked her, I said, Mo, why are you doing that? And she said, I don't know why, I just felt like it. So that would seem to suggest that in my lucid dream, I interacted with her and her subconscious picked up the information. And later on, 3 months later on a afternoon in Burlingame, California, she expressed it, and she herself didn't even know why she was doing it.
That reminds me of a thing. One of my subscribers and like a really, really good supporter as Bill, And he's a profound lucid dreamer, but also astral traveler, and you know, he can have lucid dreams during waking life. He can pretty much be lucid whenever he wants. And I mean, I don't even know why he listens to my videos, because he's clearly more advanced. But he told me that for months and months in the astral or lucid dreaming realm, or however you want to call it, I've been his teacher, teaching him all about lucid dreaming in addition to the videos. I'm like, I'm not even aware of this. I mean, you know, I'm not conscious the whole night, but who knows what, you know, my subconscious or the projection or my signature does, you know, outside of the physical. So
yeah, and it's interesting too. In my magazine, Lucid Dreaming Experience, that I co-edit, each issue I interview an experienced lucid dreamer, and one time I did a woman. I think the name she goes by is Nadia or Naya, Naya, something like that. But what happened to her is she was a very good lucid dreamer, but every time she'd become lucidly aware, there was always one dream figure there. And finally, the dream figure introduced himself as Scott. And in all these lucid dreams, Scott would be there. And then she began to talk to Scott, and Scott wanted to teach her about chakras. And she said she had absolutely no interest in chakras. But Scott told her, you know, this is really important. You should let me teach you about this. And so they just went on and on for years. Scott would always appear in her lucid dreams, and finally got around to teaching her various things. But it just shows that this whole issue of lucid dreaming brings up a lot of other issues that normally most people never think about.
yeah.
And so what I'm saying here is that, is Scott an inner teacher? Is he an archetype of wisdom? What exactly is Scott? And it's a little bit hard to know. So
Yeah. Alexander's asking the question in our live chat on the side. One more question. What's your self-evidence that differences lucid dreams from astral projection?
right. So again, the classic definition of a lucid dream is realizing within a dream that you're dreaming. And so if I see Queen Elizabeth in a bikini and think, wait a second, queens don't wear bikinis, oh, this must be a dream, you know, then that's obviously a lucid dream. But think of what happens in a lot of OBEs or astral travel. A person has a heart attack, they're being rolled into the medical clinic, and all of a sudden they find themselves on the ceiling of the medical clinic looking down at their body. So where is the dream? Where is the realizing within a dream that you're dreaming in that experience? Or you're falling asleep at night and all of a sudden you're hearing buzzing and humming, and now you realize that you're viewing your bedroom from 10 feet above your bed. Where is the realizing within a dream that you're dreaming? So there are a lot of similarities, you know, but a house cat and a mountain lion look very similar, but I'm happy to have a house cat, but I don't think I want a mountain lion in my house with me. They're different. They're different. So, but on some levels, they're very similar because you're flying around, you're going through walls, you're doing this, that, and the other. They're very similar. But when you start to look at them more detailed, you see that they're different. Yeah. And in my first book, I give a whole chapter on this and give even more of the differences between lucid dreams and out of bodies in my experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I interviewed people all over the world, like people that are into lucid dreaming for myself, and asked them about their questions. And although I'm not 100% sure how I can answer the question for myself, because I had experiences, but they're kind of like in a gray area, and I don't know exactly how to conceptualize them. From different continents, people told me the exact same experience. So I know for sure the phenomena is real, even if you haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've asked people independently, and they told me such profound, intense experiences, you can't make that up. But then I've heard also different stories where some astral travelers say, well, you know, even if you're astral traveling or having an out-of-body experience, still you can influence the environment. Still you can create portals, or if I say beyond this door there's another room with rainbows in it, then that's what suddenly happens. So they don't even say, oh no, you know, there's less influence than in a lucid dream. So I think the borders are really, you know, hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah, and so in my first book, and also I wrote a chapter in this book called Consciousness Beyond the Body, which was edited by Alex Defoe. And in that chapter, I talk about how you can move from a lucid dream into an out-of-body experience. And also I show how you can move from sleep paralysis into either a lucid dream or into an out-of-body by the different technique that you do in the sleep paralysis experience. And so when you do these kind of things, you realize that they're very different. But so for example, in my first book, I wrote about becoming lucidly aware, and I shouted out, now let me experience the next form or the next level. And I either said the next form, let me experience the next form, or let me experience the next level. And boom, just like that, I found myself in an OBE state in my kitchen about 5 or 6 feet below where I was sleeping. And it was the exact proper time of day. I flew around the neighborhood. I even went into one of the neighbors' house and saw it clearly, and later confirmed it when the neighbor moved out, and you know, that it was exactly set up as I experienced in this OBE experience. So, but what I want to say is OBEs and lucid dreams to me seem different dimensions, but you can move from one dimension to another if you know how to do it and how to go about it.
Yep. Here's a really simple question, and that comes from Dream Wizard 9, and he asks how to improve dream recall. And he also added, oh, Robert is probably going to say just use a dream diary, but I hope he has some other tips as well.
Yeah, so you know, for some people, they just don't recall dreams. And so for some people, I really encourage them to tell their larger awareness that now they're ready to remember dreams. Because sometimes we have traumatic stuff happen in our life and we just shut down our dreaming. And so if you tell your larger awareness that now you're ready to, oftentimes you'll have a really profound experience. But for other terms of dream recall, one of my main tips is this: the first thing you got to think about when you become awake is, what was I just dreaming? Because if the first thing you do is you look at your cell phone or see if someone is texting you or what's going on, then you'll forget your dreams, and 15 seconds later you can't remember anything. And so the first thing you have to think is, what was I just dreaming? Then the second thing, a person could do something like this. You could take vitamin B6 before you go to sleep. It's correlated with better memory. And so taking vitamin B6 before you go to sleep also reinforces the idea that you want to remember your dreams. But by doing those kind of things, it gets you into the game. The sad thing is, in this culture, we devalue dreams. We think of them as, scientists will say, oh, they're the junk of the mind, or they're the mind in psychosis, or whatever. And so it's, unless you really value dreams, they're hard to remember. So you really got to get into the game and value and really want to have a dream in the morning.
Yeah. Okay, here's one of my questions.
Oh, no.
So a lot of times I would go fly in dreams, and in the one dreams where I have less control, I would experience flying higher and higher and higher, to where it's almost like too high, and it's like, wow, everything, like, I don't even see stuff, it's probably cold up here, let's go down again, but I'm losing a sense of the control of going down, and then I kind of go too high and I kick myself out of the dream sometimes.
And so you find this happens spontaneously in some lucid dreams?
No, yeah, it's a common thread where I fly too high, too far away, and it's almost like, you set your intention on something like going high, and it's like a movie that cannot be stopped. The direction keeps going, and it seems kind of impossible in your mind to go down again. And then that unfortunately always, kind of messes up the dream, and then from there it's kind of hard because you get either kicked out or you end up in that black void state.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you then can recover sometimes, but not always. So what would you recommend doing?
Yeah, so an important thing, if you're really on the lucid dreaming path, is to start to think more deeply about dream symbolism. Because sometimes in our lucid dreams, we're given symbolic information, but we're too dense to get it because we normally don't think in symbolic terms. We think in very literal terms. And so everyone's symbolism is going to be different because, you know, for you, if you grew up and your family had dogs and dogs were friendly, you know, dogs are kind of a symbol of loving and faithfulness and loyalty and all that kind of stuff. But if another person who's been attacked by a dog doesn't have that symbolism for them. So if I found myself, if this was my dream, and it's not, it's yours, but if it was my dream and I kept going more and more and more and more and more, I would wonder when I woke up, is my lucid dream trying to show me something about extremism, about taking something too deep? Or do I have a fear of taking something too extreme?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, one aspirin can get rid of your headache, but 1,000 aspirin is probably enough to put you into a coma, you know, and all. So extremism, is it good? Is it bad? What's exactly going on? That would be the first thing that I'd wonder about. Or is my, you know, what's going on here? If I was really lucid, I would just shout out to the larger awareness, you know,
Yeah.
you know, what does this represent? Or I feel so high away from everything. What does this represent?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I mean, I totally know what it means, and I always think in those terms as well. So, like, to me, that's just like, obviously, like, you know, you're like pushing yourself so much, you know, and you're so ambitious and all that stuff.
Right,
so keep going higher and higher and higher. So I definitely where that's coming from. But I was just wondering if sometimes you still experience, you know, you think you have a good amount of lucidity, but you know, you just shout out things to the dream like, hey, can you answer that question? There's just no response. Or you try to do something and you get blocked somehow.
Right.
That still happens.
So I think the larger awareness acts as a kind of teacher or instructor that is trying to help you grow and learn, you know, you, the ego self, and also understand that it exists. And so some questions people ask are the question is poorly phrased or poorly thought out. Like, you know, should I take this job or should I take a cruise to Alaska? I mean, these should I questions are just silly, I think. But and then some of the questions I think that don't get a response are ones that are questions that the ego has to decide, and it's not for the larger awareness to decide. So I think that's something that's going on there. But I remember one time I was lucidly aware, and I became lucid, and then I thought, oh, my wife is going to have a birthday here in a couple of weeks. So I shouted out to the larger awareness, hey, what does Wendy want for a birthday present? And suddenly, there in the space, a teddy bear appeared. And I looked at this teddy bear and I thought, my wife would want a teddy bear? I mean, I thought this is just the stupidest thing. And so, but I woke up from the lucid dream, and the next morning at the breakfast table, I turned to my wife and I thought, have you ever wanted like a teddy bear as a present? And my wife looked at me like I was totally crazy, like I was nuts. And that's when I realized that my lucid dream was trying to give me a symbolic response, that a teddy bear, at least in America, is also a word for a man who's very huggable and lovable and warm and cuddly and all those wonderful things. And so so when I shouted out, hey, what does my wife want for her birthday? My larger awareness was trying to tell me